for narrowing the vast majority of what some people estimate to be 500,000 to 1 million jobs available every day to freelancers across a variety of networks. That you can't look at 500,000 jobs. You got to narrow those down somehow, and we're going to talk about the ways that you do that and some of my favorite strategies, especially for beginners as they're getting started, that they can use to find short, small, fun, interesting jobs to do that appeal to their domains of knowledge, the things they like to do. The one of the great things about freelancing is there's so many different directions you can go in, and many baby boomers and 50 plus really have that experience base. They've got decades of doing things, so there's a lot of pretty straightforward, simple jobs to do as you're getting started. And but I know a lot of people struggle to find those jobs, so we're going to talk about some of those strategies. I do want to welcome all of those of you listening to the playback on this. We get about 90 to 95% of our listeners on the playback, so very much welcome you as well. We do follow the comments on the playback, so if you've got a question, just pop it in there and I'll take a look and we'll get an answer for you, help you out. So let's talk about favorite search strategies, and some of these have to do with topics that you wouldn't necessarily think that you had any particular skill in. I went onto one of the networks this morning, and one of the things the networks do when you're looking for work as a freelancer, they give the buyer the ability to limit the freelancers to somebody that's in the United States or somebody that is anywhere else in the world. Now, what we recommend is that you look at everybody around the world, because you don't necessarily want to restrict yourself in that way. And just by example, one of these networks, if you say want to work for a freelancer that wants to only work with people in the United States, you would find about 36,000 jobs today that are available, total jobs. That's across all categories. But if you were to accept work from anywhere in the world, that opens up that network to a total of 234,000 jobs. So that's more than 6 times the number of jobs that you would normally be able to draw. And of course, those numbers are both way too big. We have to use search terms to narrow those down, search qualifiers to narrow those down. And what many people don't realize is one of those things that you can do is you can teach English. There has been an explosion of work just using your English speaking skills. And I was looking at a job just this morning. Somebody in the insurance business wants to learn better English because they live in a country that Americans and Canadians are moving to, and they want to be better able to explain and sell insurance services to those Americans and Canadians. So that's what they're going for there. The idea is, and the specific job is, they want to get on twice a week with a U.S. or Canadian-based insurance agent and learn the terms that an insurance person has to know in order to successfully sell to an American or a Canadian or somebody from Australia or somebody from the UK or whatever it is. Because in our countries, you have different terms. There's a concept of something like a deductible. We all know what a deductible is. If you have a wreck in your car and you've got a $500 deductible, well, if it costs $499 to repair it, that's on you. But once it goes over $500, then that's where the insurance kicks in. And, as these different products and services have evolved over the years, and may not be as sophisticated in a foreign country as they are in the US and Canada. You have these, they need to learn the language. They need to be able to communicate. The insurance agents in the foreign country need to be able to communicate. So they come online to systems like Upwork or Freelancer or Guru.com and say, I want to hire somebody to teach me English around insurance topics, and do that. So kind of an interesting sort of opportunity there. In fact, I just looked up on one network the opportunities to teach English today in one way or another is over 2,639. And you would further pare that down by putting in, you know, domains of knowledge that you might have, like if you know medical English, for example, if you know insurance English, for example, if you know, car rental English. There's just all kinds of different variants of that people are looking for, and the more specific you can be in your experiences, the better it's going to be for the person that's hiring you. And the back end of this is a trend. And thank you, Marianne. That's oops, there we go. That's a great comment there. Uh, Great way to get us started and use those first establishing jobs and using a skill that you've had all your life. And you're tapping into this giant wave. I like to talk about those of you that have ever been on a surfboard or water skied. You have to get your surfboard in front of the wave, and then you have to start paddling so you've got a little bit of momentum when the wave gets to you, so you can pick up on the wave and move forward with it. And that's what we're talking about here is 1.5 billion people on the planet that don't know English right now are actively learning it. They're paying money for courses, they're taking classes, they're going online, they're buying lesson plans, they're doing all kinds of things. And just the English language is very important. And so you might ask, why is the English language important? Well, generally around the world, English is considered the language of business. So I know from living in Mexico and spending time in Ecuador and Costa Rica and Panama that parents of kids feel it is of the highest priority that their child's education include learning English. So that's an important thing to get, because they see that as being the way that their child moves into opportunity. I know where I live in Huatulco, there are advertisements, in the local bulletins or even on bulletin boards at laundromats and things like that, that where they're advertising. There's a fair number of hotels there, so they have huge hotel staffs. I mean, there's got to be thousands of people employed as hotel staff in a relatively small town like Huatulco, but they're paying top dollar in that economy, sometimes as much as double for people that have English language skills. So it's that important to folks like that, and to your economic sort of uplift if you can speak English. So lots of good jobs on there. Now, the next aspect I want to talk about for my favorite search strategies, we have this thing called domains of knowledge. When you go through our program, we talk about what are your domains of knowledge. You have a skill set. You might be a good proofreader. You might be good with PowerPoint. You might be a good customer service person. There's over 1,000 different skills that you could have on these networks. So pretty much everything is covered. But the domain of knowledge is the thing that really separates you from everybody else. We talk a lot about how to differentiate yourself. And, if you know, if you come out of the pharmaceutical industry, for example, and you know a lot about a certain kind of drug or a certain uh, medical procedure or something like that, that is what we would consider a domain of knowledge. But that same person from the pharmaceutical industry has a life outside of the pharmaceutical industry as well. And they may be excellent at, camping. That might be a hobby of theirs. So they have that domain of knowledge. So if they were a proofreader and they could combine proofreading with something like camping, that narrows the number of jobs way down. And the freelance buyer that wants to hire that person, they don't want to hire the world's best proofreader. They want to hire a proofreader, a good proofreader that knows something about camping. So that would be a very important way to look at that, and a very good way to search on that. So the domains of knowledge are important. To go back to the pharmaceutical example, or continue with that, I guess, that person might know a lot by virtue of the training about anatomy, about various systems of the body. So if they were to do proofreading for a health site, they would have a general idea far beyond the population that has not had that kind of training as to what that might be. And this would further narrow down the number of jobs that you're looking at. When we get a person's, when we do coaching and we get somebody's search strategies tuned up well, what we do is we go for presenting, finding the jobs that meet several different criteria, so that you're only looking at a dozen to 2 dozen jobs on a daily basis that are perfectly tuned up for you. They touch on several of your domains of knowledge. They might touch on several of your skills. And those are the jobs that you're going to have the greatest chance of getting when you send in your proposal, because they typically address multiple skills and multiple domains that are valuable to the person hiring that individual. So let's say you were in the aviation industry, or work for an airline, something like that. Well, I just went on this morning and looked, and if I put in the word aviation, I find 94 different jobs. That's still a lot, but right out of your industry. These jobs come on here and they roll in and they roll out. So you're going to, see uh, there'll be 96 jobs on today, and a week from now, most of those 96 will kind of wash off the system because they were awarded, and there'll be a new 96 jobs on there. Then, but the word aviation doesn't fully describe aviation, and this is the strategy you really have to have, is understanding what are the other words associated with that. So if I put in the word aircraft, that produces another 76 jobs. And if I put in the word airline, that produces another 211 jobs. And so if you've flown for an airline for 10 years or whatever it might have been, those are all potential jobs that represent an opportunity for you. And then there's further strategies to pare that down based on your skill set. The other thing I like to do, and this is in the category of have a little fun with it, I find that people that learn how to have fun with this actually tend to do a little bit better in it, because they go in and they sort of play around with the search strategies, and it's not like you pay for every search or anything. You can come up with a list of words and start typing them in and see what happens, just to see a random sampling of jobs. And I remember talking to one of our members who was worked for a major corporation. They had to write correspondence and proposals and that kind of thing in their job. So they were a very good writer. They knew how to write in different styles from time to time. In some cases, they knew how to inject a little humor into the writing they were doing. And he thought that as his retirement was coming up early, that he's always wanted to be a comedy writer. And so he started putting in terms like comedy or fun or humorous. And he began finding jobs, some of them very high level jobs, some of them very low level jobs, what we would call starter jobs, that gave him the opportunity to begin in a very non-threatening way work on simple projects where he had to bring his writing skills together with his sense of humor and his intention to begin working in this area. Now, if you've been writing, like in my job, I was always writing sometimes boring reports or analytical or technology oriented or that kind of thing. And it was always a delight when I got to write something that was a little more conversational, a little less formal, that sort of thing. So here's a way that you can grow your muscle for those kinds of jobs. Now, there are lots of things you can go into other categories of things that interest you. I remember talking to a member that had a lifelong interest in snakes, never really did much other than having a few pet snakes along the way, but could identify many different species and knew many different characteristics and that kind of thing. So, do you have something, a hobby like that, an interest like that? There was an individual that was very much focused on creating recipes using certain kinds of foods, using foods that come from certain regions around the world. And she was able to, put that together. You can go in there and type in recipes, and in this particular case, it was Caribbean. There's a whole style of Caribbean cooking and things that you can do with ingredients that have coconut in them and stuff like that. So that was a passion for her. So she was able to use that search strategy to go in and find the jobs that were absolutely best suited for her. So if today, if she went in and typed the word recipe, and I'm just going to do it here, I've got it called up here. And if you type the word recipe, oops, hold on, we're not quite there yet. What are we doing here? There's a category for recipe writing. There are 77 jobs open today. There is one for Ayurvedic, which is a health system. But you go in and you type in Caribbean, and you're going to find 4 jobs. And if you're an expert in Caribbean recipes, there you go. That's your start. And those people are going to be your people. They're going to be enthusiastic about having a conversation with you. They're going to be enthusiastic through your shared interest. They're going to enjoy working with you because they will learn things from what you know and push those share things with you, so there'll be a sort of a mutual educational benefit from you working together, and that mutual uh, educational benefit is of huge importance to freelance buyers. Very important thing to bring to fore there. So, a couple other examples. If I look up fishing, I see 96 jobs today. if I put in the word fish, like FISH by itself, there's another 180 jobs. So there's almost 300 jobs in there, but you have to play around with this to get comfortable, to understand what are the key words that are going to come up. But the good news is this is pretty simple, and this is kind of a bonus tip, is that when you put in a word like fishing and you find 96 jobs, if you go read each of those jobs or a smattering of them, 5 or 10 of them, and keep your notebook open, you're going to have a list. And you, every time you see a fishing word, you put it in there. It might be something like fly fishing you would see in a job posting. So that's the way that makes it easy. You don't have to think all this up on your own. You're able to go in there, look at other jobs, look at the words and phrases they use. And yes, it's not just words, it's phrases like fly fishing, or boating, or that kind of thing. You put in those words, and that will further expand your search in one direction. Or if you're trying to narrow down a bunch of things, if you've put in fish and fishing, and you're staring at 276 jobs, you might hold those jobs and then say, show me all the ones that have those words in it, but also have the word boat or boating in there. So this is a very good way to quickly narrow that down. And let's say you know a lot about boats because you've bought 3 or 4 boats in your career that you've used for fishing over time. That's a great way to bring that in there. So happy to answer any questions you have about this. Happy to give you an idea of some counts if you want to pop words into the chat window. I'm sitting right here with in command of the full search capability of one of the largest work online sites for freelancers, and I'll give you an idea of what the number of jobs that might have a name or a word or a keyword phrase that you may or may not suspect would be popular. And so for example, let's see, I looked up, see what a lot of people say, well, I want to do proofreading, and here's the problem. uh, Proofreading jobs open today, there's 9,907 jobs. How do you narrow that down? How do you turn that into something that you want? So I'm going to look for proofreading around the word flying and aviation. And we'll see. Oops, I misspelled that. You have to be. Okay, and there's 10 jobs. So that's very specific. That's doable. That's manageable. That's so you can look at all 10 of those jobs. You can say, do I want to do this one? Do I want to do that one? And the great thing about coming up with a search that boils the number of items that you're looking at down to that number, a dozen to 2 dozen, is it's manageable. We like to talk about this thing called the 80-20 rule. If you have 12 jobs, all 12 of those are not going to be, quote, perfect for you. You're extremely fortunate if 20% of them are. So 2 or 3 out of 12, 4 to 6 out of 24, something like that, because these jobs are rolling over, and every week they're going to roll over. And the way we teach working online is what you want to do is find those initial jobs that turn into repeat jobs. Once, say, somebody has a website that's all about aviation or organic gardening, if you have a good background in that area, they want to continue to use you. They don't want to go in and find a new person every week. They want to find somebody that knows their stuff, and they're more than happy in many cases to give you ongoing work and say, we want you to write 3 articles a month for us, or we want you to do this thing on an ongoing basis. We want you to create a monthly report spreadsheet that looks at some aspect of our business or that kind of thing. And uh, very good point, Marianne. The working with topics you're personally interested brings the fun and joy to that, and that's a tenet of what we bring to our programs. Is we can teach anybody, I think, mostly to freelance, but if we can't find a little fun in it for them as well, we don't feel like we've completely done our job. And so that's just a point that's open for you. That's something that's you want to consciously take note of that. There's this story about training fleas, and this apparently somebody figured out that if you take fleas and you put them in a jar and you put the top of the jar on there, that the fleas will try to jump out of the jar and they'll hit the lid, and they'll do that several times, and then they get tired of hitting their head. And you can take the lid off the jar, and the flea has kind of been trained, not to leap out of the jar, even though physically they could do it. They just know that the last time they tried it, or the last few times, they hit their head. Well, a lot of freelancers are like this. They don't realize that they don't have to bring that all the aspects of that icky job that they had into the world of freelancing, that they could do it. Like if you had to make a lot of PowerPoint presentations like I did, explaining computer concepts and database concepts and that kind of thing, all very interesting, a lot of fun when I was doing it. But by the end of my corporate career, I was kind of over it. And I thought I didn't like making presentations. And when I got to Barefoot Consultants, I figured out that I like making presentations. I just want the topics to change or be in something that I'm interested in. So very good opportunity to get in there, play around with it. Make sure you turn on the worldwide network so you're searching across all networks rather than just one, and have some fun with it. And I'd love to hear on Facebook Friday or on our Tuesday night call what fun job you have found. And on our Tuesday night call, I was just we talk about a hilarious job of the week, and we have quite the hilarious job this week for those of you that are going to be on our Tuesday night call. So we'll have a little drama around that. We'll show you the job. There's some interesting things to notice about it, and so you'll learn a few new ways to search on that on Tuesday night. So with that, have a great Friday. Look forward to seeing you next week. Some of you are coming to our workshop in St. Louis starting next Friday. We'll look forward to seeing you as well. So have a great weekend and a great week freelancing. Take care.